What's up with searching for the answer outside of us? For a long time, I didn't even understand what that meant. How could I be searching for the answer outside of me? How could I be searching for the answer within me? I use my head. I think if someone in my external area, someone I work with, a boss, a parent, higher authority figure, tells me something to do, then I guess, that would be getting my answer outside of me. But to get an answer within me, I guess I just never really understood what that meant. It wasn't until I started really working on learning my energy, learning chakras, learning personal development, feeling from my heart rather than going through my head, which this is still a practice. It's not like I've got this completely under control. I still feel as though I have blocks going on. But they say everything's about love, right? Well, your heart chakra is clearly about love. So to work with your heart chakra and to work with being led by your heart over your head, that's taken me a lot of practice. And I still catch myself. Now I'm even working with grounding and being more in my root chakra, so the lower chakras, because I've heard that being of an empathetic nature, people pleaser, whatever little traumas I had as a kid, I've illuminated my upper chakras to be able to tune out and feel the situation out, feel the people in my surroundings out. And I think a lot of us do this without even realizing it. So now that I'm aware of it, I'm looking to work more on my root chakra and feel it in my gut. And there for a while, I even had a hard time with deciphering what it was my heart wanted and what it was that my gut wanted. And I'm just actually remembering this now, so I can't really talk too much on that besides the fact of really being aware of where I feel energetic sensations, I suppose, in the lower chakras and the heart. But like I said, I still kind of feel like my heart's blocked. It's all a practice, and I don't have a great answer for it. But from what today has brought up is I'm realizing how much I look for the answer outside of me. And especially with this spiritual awakening that occurred a few years back, I've mentioned before, it was all ignited by social media. It was the spiritual TikTok, if you will. And it was a whole bunch of different ideas and a whole bunch of different ways of doing things that I had never heard before, but felt right. Growing up in the middle of the Bible Belt, I'm not super gaudy, churchy, but then to learn about all these other entities and deities and just different ways to work with your energy, I became very fascinated by it. But again, whenever you're only going off of social media, especially TikTok, you're typically only rocking a few seconds to maybe a minute or two before you're scrolling on to the next one. So I realized that even whenever I became aware of it and I started meditating and really trying to come into myself without really knowing what I was doing, I was still super hyper focused on the tarot readings. And I'm not saying that tarot readings are bad. In fact, I just had a really amazing tarot reading with my actual tarot, face to face. Let's just say I'm gonna claim that bitch. But in the same process, I know that in the beginning I caught myself, and I'm starting to do it now, and I think that's why I'm bringing this up, is scrolling through, waiting for if this found you shit coming through my feed so that I could decipher and pick out if it was for me or if it wasn't for me. Which, even on that, I think that's kind of a silly thing, because our minds are so powerful that we will rationalize anything to make it feel right or to make it work. So on top of this, I also learned about signs and on synchronicities. And so I had these signs that I asked to appear, for whatever was occurring at the time. And even though I had asked for these signs, I didn't see them. One of them was a strawberry, and I had a whole bunch of stickers. Something happened. Either way, the whole lot of stickers just flew all over the place. And I was like, what the fuck? They were so random. I think it was Temu or whatever was before, just like a whole collage of different stickers that was super cheap. And no strawberries showed up, but a watermelon showed up amongst some other things that were like right side up, whatever. And so I was like, all right, so maybe watermelon's better than strawberry, right? And so then I was kind of attaching myself to anything watermelon. Well, that's leading me in the right direction. And it's taken that was definitely not the right direction. It wasn't not, I guess if nothing else, like signs do work, but in the same aspect, I had to rationalize that watermelon was supposed to be the better version, because it was what occurred during the situation that I wanted to occur, if that makes sense. And yes, that had to do with a guy. So, what is it that you're rationalizing that may or may not actually be what's in the cards for you? May not be quite the best thing for you. Now, I will say that even though I did pursue the watermelon, there was a lot of great learning lessons. There was a lot of things that occurred in that moment that, for one, gave me hope. For two, introduced me to physical fitness and some other things, reintroduced me into childhood fun, if you will. And if it hadn't have been for me pursuing watermelon, then I definitely wouldn't be where I am today. So I also have to say everything works out for a reason. But back to the signs and the synchronicities, I caught myself like rationalizing so much. Rationalizing letters in license plates. There's just all kinds of different things. And then if it didn't work out, like if it didn't show up, I would be in this really gnarly spiral of doom, like instantly, which this was conditioning. This was just something within myself that I didn't even realize until maybe a month or so ago had such a hold on me. But I realized that whenever it wasn't showing up exactly how I wanted it, the sign or whatnot, I would almost instantly go into remorse. Like, not so much regret, but I just would start imagining all these different things that could go wrong. You know, in anything. Like today I paid my taxes. I signed the paperwork and got my taxes turned in before the due date. And yay me, no penalty fee. But even whenever I got the phone call from my accountant to come in and take care of it, I caught myself because I wanted to go like, oh man, like I own my own business. I'm going to have to pay a whole bunch. And instead I caught myself and, you know, I brought it back into my heart space, into my body, whatever you want to call it. And I breathed through it and I reassured myself, you know, that it's not like I'm going to get $1 million out of turning in my taxes, but I did say something about getting some money back. And I got state return back, even though I owe a few zeros federally. It's okay. I got something back. So I feel good about that. But where I'm going with this is just catching yourself and looking for what you actually desire rather than what could potentially go wrong. I talk about this a lot, and I believe it's because it's something that I'm really working on right now. And I'm noticing the more that I'm practicing being aware of this, the more that I am able to catch myself. There for a while, whenever I first practiced this, it wouldn't be until after the fact that I was like, oh shit, like I did it again, damn it. But now I'm actually catching myself in the process. Finding the breadcrumbs, finding the answers outside of us, whether it be in signs or whether it be in tarot readings or you're just waiting for something to show up. Be very careful with how quick you are to rationalize something. Again, in the beginning of my whole process, I skimmed the surface. I thought because I heard it and I was learning it on TikTok that I had it all down and that I was ahead of the curve. And of course, you know, you spend your entire life one way. So when you learn that this new way of thinking is going to change your entire life, you're like all in. But there is the shadow work. Like, don't forget, there is the shadow work. There is the personal development. There is the coming back into yourself and understanding why, maybe not even the why, but understanding and catching yourself in patterns that haven't so much served you. I mean, that's a whole different thing. I spent a lot of time. I spent multiple years on trying to figure out the why. Like I said, I think if I would have had guidance, I wouldn't have spent that much time, because in reality, you can't really change the why. If you were aware of the why, you can reframe it, but it definitely takes some practice, and it definitely helps to have some people of the like-minded to be able to be there with you on that. I think another thing with me, with looking for the signs and the answers outside of me, I feel like we've all been conditioned, especially if you've been to public school. Maybe it's just me in the Midwest, but I feel like this is a pretty relevant thing to a lot of people, but we're expected to be told what to do. I've been pretty entrepreneurial most of my life, but I've always had some kind of a boss. I've always opted to have I opted to be the apprentice and have my teacher, I don't know what you would call them, the master. I always opted to work underneath the master to apprentice so that I would have a more hands-on understanding. And I feel as though, especially once I came about in this awareness, actually, I know I did. I expected all the answers to be given to me by spirit, by the above, the divine, universe, God, whatever you want to call it. I thought that that's how it was going to work. And especially with just scapegoating over the top, I thought that I had it figured out and all the answers would just be given to me. And that is not how it works. And that is probably the number one reason why I got burnt so bad, was the expectation of everything being handed to me. And I feel like that's just pretty relevant in life in general. I mean, we're all on our own paths, and I don't know a whole lot about past life shenanigans. So I can see where some people have it easier than other people, but I also feel like it's within our journey. We're all capable of being where we want to be. It's just overcoming those fears, those stories, those things, that limiting beliefs, whatever it is that we've been telling ourselves that's been holding us back. And so even with the tarot and even with the signs and the answers, because I was full force, give me the sign, I'm gonna go in that direction. And I expected everything to be shabby dabby, and that's just not how the universe works, at least in my program. So yeah, external validation, it's not even validation, but it's finding the answer outside of you. And I feel like, because that our life is our journey, this is our process and whatever we signed up for. And so for the above to just give us the answer and just make it easy, I think that takes the whole point out of living. I think that takes the whole point out of learning what it is we want and experiencing things. Because you can't fully enjoy love and joy and happiness if you haven't had a little bit of pain or hurt. It's something that's funny is for years, whenever I was still on autopilot and I knew nothing about this stuff, when you stub your toe, it's a bitch. And it's not like it happens all the time, at least not for me. But whenever I would stub a toe or hit the funny bone, or, I even rolled my hand up and my fingers in the window one time, slammed the door on my hand, I feel like those little pains, and I used to say this as well, it's to wake you up so that you feel alive, because otherwise you just keep going through the motions. So it's kind of funny now that I'm learning what I'm learning and I know what I know now, because you have to have a little bit of pain, a little bit or a lot of bit of discomfort in order to really level yourself up, to work harder towards what you actually want. And I think it's a whole weave of everything. I don't think shit's just gonna fall from the sky, but I do believe that there is a magnetic frequency and there is the attraction of bringing in what you want. And the more you focus on things that you actually want, the more aware you'll be. I think it's a whole combination of things. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. External validation rather than internal, validation. It's not validation, but finding the answers outside of yourself or finding the answer within yourself. I don't know. Maybe there's got to be something to this validation. Maybe it's the more you do, the more validation you get from your external so that you can understand it from your internal. If you've been so hardwired for years, it's like I said, it's like peeling off the paint. You know, the more years, the more practice you've had into something, doing it wrong, maybe that'll connect a little better. Because I remember when I bartended and I was in Daytona, one of the bars that I worked at, he liked to take fresh people. The owner of the bar did not like hiring on professional mixologists or whatnot, because they had their own system and they had their own recipes. So he liked to bring fresh out the gate people. There's probably a lot more to that, but on the hindsight of that, it could very well be because there's no habits to break. You hear that a lot in different jobs. You know, it's easier to train somebody fresh than to break down old habits to train new habits. Yet this is our life. So how bad do you want it? You know, like if you're not happy where you are right now and you are aware of different ways that you could change your life, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to break through those old habits to create new habits. So anyways, carry on, my friends. I appreciate you, and until next time.